It begins with a land cloaked in green, winds rushing across hills, waves crashing against cliffs. Ireland, a sacred island where memory lives in stones and freedom breathes in soil. Before invaders came, Ireland was not wild but ordered, ruled by kings, Brehon laws, and scholars. Poets wrote epics, and monks preserved Europe's light when the world was dark. The year 1169 marked the first breach, when Norman knights arrived claiming to bring civilization. In truth, they came for power, land, and the silencing of a free Gaelic nation. Ireland already had civilization, universities, libraries, laws. The invasion was not charity. It was conquest masked as duty, crowned by English greed and violence disguised as virtue. The English crown claimed lordship over Ireland, building castles across the countryside. Chieftains were broken, villages seized, and Irish soil slowly renamed under foreign banners. Gaelic customs were outlawed. Wearing Irish dress or speaking the Irish tongue became acts of defiance. Ireland's culture was declared primitive, its people unfit to rule themselves. The Statutes of Kilkenny forbade English settlers from adopting Irish ways, revealing the Crown's fear. The Irish identity was too strong, too proud, too unwilling to disappear. As centuries passed, England's grip tightened. Every rebellion was met with land seizures, and English landlords grew rich off Irish backs. The Irish farmer became a tenant on stolen ground. In the 1600s, colonization became policy. Protestant settlers from England and Scotland were planted in Ulster. Native Irish were forced west, stripped of dignity and land alike. To hell or to Connacht became the cruel slogan. Catholics were driven into rocky lands. Their churches were closed, their language suppressed, and their resistance labeled treason. The Penal Laws followed, designed to crush Irish Catholic life. Catholics couldn't vote, own land, attend school, or inherit property. It was legal warfare against an entire faith. Irish priests preached in secret, schools were held behind hedgerows. A generation learned to read under fear of arrest. The Irish spirit remained defiant, even in whispered lessons. Protestants loyal to the crown ruled the economy, politics, and land. Catholics, the native majority, were reduced to laborers, their wealth and voice erased by imperial decree. Resistance took many forms: poetry, rebellion, exile. Irish culture hid in songs and stories preserved like embers waiting for wind. But resistance also meant facing brutal retaliation. Oliver Cromwell's invasion in 1649 marked a low point. His forces slaughtered thousands at Drogheda and Wexford. He called it God's will. The Irish called it a massacre. After Cromwell, Ireland was no longer just occupied. It was punished. Catholic property was confiscated. English lords owned over 90% of arable land. Native rule was erased. By the 18th century, the Irish peasantry survived on tenant farming and fear. Britain ruled with iron laws and Protestant ascendancy, locking Catholic Ireland into silence and submission. But Ireland never accepted silence. Even stripped of land, faith, and language, its people clung to memory, to myth, and to the knowledge that they once ruled themselves with honor. A new flame sparked in the late 1700s, inspired by the French and American revolutions. The United Irishmen sought to unite Catholic and Protestant in one free Irish republic. In 1798, they rose. Armed farmers and scholars, poets and rebels, took up arms. The British crushed the rebellion with savage force. Wolfe Tone, its leader, died in prison. Yet Tone's dreams survived. In the 19th century, Daniel O'Connell emerged, the liberator. He fought not with rifles, but with law, organizing peaceful mass protests for Catholic rights. In 1829, Catholic emancipation passed. O'Connell's victory showed that peaceful pressure could shift empire, but it also revealed the limits of mercy under British rule. While rich landlords thrived, Irish peasants grew poorer. Families survived on potatoes alone. A single blight in 1845 would reveal how little the empire valued Irish lives. The Great Famine was not just crop failure, it was engineered neglect. Millions starved, another million fled, as Ireland's food was shipped to English markets under armed guard. People died with grain locked in storehouses. Mothers buried infants beside blackened fields. British officials blamed the Irish for their hunger, calling it a lesson in providence. Coffin ships sailed westward, packed with the dying. Irish families scattered to America and Canada. The diaspora was born. Broken, bitter, but fiercely connected to home. After the famine, Ireland was a haunted land, depopulated, scarred, and simmering with quiet rage. British rule had promised protection, delivered only graves. But famine could not destroy Irish identity. The language endured in rural homes, ballads kept memories alive. In America, exiles raised money for the next rebellion. Secret societies like the Fenians emerged in the 1860s, plotting an Irish republic from New York to Dublin. Their uprisings failed, but their cause grew stronger. The Gaelic revival swept Ireland in the late 1800s. Schools taught Irish again. Writers like Yeats and Lady Gregory rekindled national pride through literature and theater. The Irish Parliamentary Party pushed for home rule, autonomy within the British Empire. Each political gain was delayed or denied. Protestants in the north threatened civil war. In 1914, Britain promised home rule, but with World War I, it was postponed again. While Irishmen died in France under British flags, hope for freedom quietly died at home. On Easter Monday, 1916, a band of rebels seized Dublin's General Post Office and proclaimed the Irish Republic. The Easter Rising had begun, a bold cry in the middle of empire. British forces shelled the city, flattened homes, executed the leaders. Pearse, Connolly, Plunkett, their deaths sparked more outrage than their rebellion ever had. By 1919, the Irish Republican Army, born of that rage, launched a full guerrilla war. Ambushes, boycotts, and assassinations made Ireland ungovernable by British rule. Michael Collins led with intelligence and precision, dismantling British control piece by piece. His squad targeted spies and collaborators. His tactics shocked the empire. In 1921, exhausted and humiliated, Britain agreed to a treaty. It gave Ireland partial freedom, but at a cost. The island would be split. 6 counties in the north would remain British. Partition carved a wound across the island. The Irish Free State was born. But Northern Ireland remained under Crown rule, sparking bitterness and a bloody legacy of division. The treaty split Irish rebels too. Civil war erupted. Collins, who negotiated peace, was assassinated. Brother fought brother. The dream of unity now wore a deeper scar. The South stabilized over time, becoming the Republic of Ireland in 1949. But in the North, Catholics lived as second-class citizens under Protestant majority rule. Gerrymandered elections, segregated housing, and job discrimination made Northern Ireland a smoldering tinderbox. By the 1960s, civil rights protests had begun. British troops arrived in 1969, supposedly to restore peace, but their presence inflamed tensions. Riots turned to bombings. Belfast became a battlefield. The Troubles had begun. 3 decades of sectarian violence with paramilitary groups on both sides. Car bombs, sniper attacks, and internment without trial ruled the streets. In 1972, on Bloody Sunday, British troops killed 14 unarmed protesters in Derry. The footage shocked the world and turned more young men toward armed struggle. The IRA fought for reunification. Loyalist groups defended British identity. Children grew up behind barricades, and entire families were shattered by the daily violence. Bobby Sands and other IRA prisoners went on hunger strike in 1981. Sands died after 66 days without food. His election to Parliament during the strike shook the empire again. By the 1990s, after decades of death, all sides grew weary. Peace talks began. In 1998, the Good Friday Agreement brought a fragile peace and a hope for something better. Northern Ireland remained in the UK, but power was shared. Sectarian laws were struck down. The border between North and South became invisible, at least on maps. But peace was not the same as unity. The wounds remain. Belfast's murals still scream of war, heroes, martyrs. Memory in Northern Ireland is still painted in black and orange. The Irish language, once banned, now thrives again. Gaelscoilíne, Irish language schools, grow across the island. What was once silenced now sings freely. Traditional music echoes in pubs and halls. Songs once whispered in fear are now performed in pride. The culture once outlawed is now weaponized, not to destroy but to remember. Ireland's poets became its prophets. From W.B. Yeats to Seamus Heaney, they chronicled not just pain, but persistence. The quiet defiance of a people who refused to be erased. The Irish diaspora, minus 70 million strong, still feels the pull of the homeland. In Boston, New York, Sydney, and Toronto, Irish surnames speak of both loss and lasting connection. From famine to freedom, from rebellion to republic, Ireland's story is one of survival against history's most brutal tide, not broken by time, but carved and shaped by it. The scars of colonization still mark the land, in language lost, in graves unmarked, in laws once written in a foreign tongue. But those scars now speak, and they speak Irish. No empire is eternal. No oppression lasts forever. The British Empire ruled with guns and chains, but the Irish spirit was an ancient, deeper force, older than crowns, tougher than steel. Today, the Republic of Ireland stands proud, independent, democratic, and free. Its economy has boomed. Its voice now carries weight in global debates in European halls. Yet unity remains a distant dream. Northern Ireland still walks a tightrope. Peace, but not closure. Identity remains a question that echoes through every flag and parade. Brexit reopened old wounds. With Britain out of the EU, the border issue re-emerged. Talks of Irish reunification, once radical, now enter mainstream conversation and policy. Polls shift slowly. The youth see less division than their parents did, but memory runs deep. Reunification will demand not just politics, but healing, honesty, and courage. Ireland's lesson is this: you can exile a people, erase their language, crush their faith, but you cannot kill their story, and you cannot stop a song that keeps being sung. The story of resistance, of clinging to identity, of outlasting injustice, and of turning suffering into something sacred. A culture born in struggle. From the Book of Kells to Bloody Sunday, from famine roads to freedom marches, every chapter of Irish history has written its defiance in ink, in tears, and in unbreakable faith. The Irish flag. Green, white, and orange tells the hope of peace between Catholic and Protestant, between rebel and unionist, between the hurt past and the possible future. Children now learn Irish in schools, once forced to teach only English. Streets once patrolled by foreign soldiers now hold festivals, marches, and songs of hope. The old colonial maps are gone. What remains is memory and a mission to never forget. To keep the stories alive, remind the world that freedom always has a price. This is not just the story of one island, it is a warning. Empires fall, but their shadows last. If we do not remember, we risk repeating the same silence, the same cruelty. Ireland's voice is no longer silenced. It echoes through time, through borderlands and broken stones, through rebel ballads and courtroom speeches, a voice that rose from ashes. The British once called Ireland a backwater, wild and unworthy, but it outlived their empire. And its legacy now teaches the very values its colonizers once claimed to bring. If history is a mirror, Ireland shows what endurance looks like. What happens when a people decide, we will not vanish, we will not kneel, we will write our names in stone. So remember the 800 years of struggle, the poets, martyrs, mothers, and farmers, the whispers that became chants, the chants that became a nation, because history isn't just about what happened, it's about what they tried to bury, what they hoped you'd forget, and what the Irish refused to surrender. If this story stirred something in you, if it reminded you of what was stolen and what was reclaimed, then don't just scroll. Make this moment matter. Comment below. 800 years, never broken. Like this video to honor the strength of the Irish. Subscribe to History Nest, where the truths they buried are finally being told. Because Ireland is not just a place, it is a story, a resistance, a legacy. And that story is still being written.